The Snoring and Sleep Apnea Journey, Part 1. Ever since I was a kid, I was plagued and embarrassed by my snoring. I remember going on a ski trip and keeping my friends awake at night. After the first night, I had to room alone because nobody could stand sleeping around me. And how much fun they made of me. Nowadays, it would be called bullying. Sound familiar? I couldn't do sleepovers. And throughout the years, I was even afraid to spend the night with girlfriends, because I knew they would never put up with my snoring. After I got married, I became really desperate about my problem. It was actually our problem now. Even worse, my wife was terrified when she witnessed how I stopped breathing in my sleep, only to gasp for air like I was drowning half a minute later. This happened several times a night. Years passed before I learned, this was a potentially deadly condition called sleep apnea. I knew something had to change, right now. I read every book, article, and forum post there was about snoring. Plus, watching so many online videos, my eyes turned red. I subscribed to hundreds of paid medical journals, to be able to read the official studies on snoring and sleep apnea. I consulted numerous doctors, therapists, and other snoring medical professionals. Simply put, I was becoming nothing short of an expert on the subject. One important thing I learned was that there are many types of snoring, and only a small percentage could be solved by each solution. That's why there are so many snoring solutions to choose from, because each person's snoring is different. And believe me, I tried it all: sprays, creams, pills, and straps. I even wore those ridiculous devices sold online, to put in your mouth and on your head. I even considered surgery. But I later learned, despite the huge cost, snoring surgery rarely works in the long haul. Even worse, operations like these can cause serious damage, even brain damage. Putting it simply, I tested every Eastern and Western snoring medicine that I could find. But nothing worked for my incurable snoring. In fact, it was getting worse. So, I kept on waking up my wife several times a night with my snoring, keeping her up for hours. Needless to say, this was becoming a real wedge between us, and was hurting our relationship severely. We fought about everything, and held a grudge toward each other, especially in the morning. Frankly, our marriage was on the edge. If we didn't have a young daughter, we probably would have separated. Eventually, we found ourselves leaving the bedroom, and taking turns sleeping on the couch. I felt ashamed and frustrated. She was sad and disappointed. Then, one day the miracle happened. Trying to lift our spirits, we took a family trip to Australia. We had a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment, with a sea view over Perth's magical white beaches. The mother and daughter shared one bedroom, and I had the other one. It was better that way. One morning, I was explaining to my wife what I had been studying. How snoring is always caused by some kind of block in the breathing passages, and that any treatment was aimed at removing that particular block. All of a sudden, she looked at me and said, "This is what I work on with my students all the time." My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You see, at this point, I have to explain to you that my wife used to be a classical singer, but turned to teaching a few years ago. She explained to me that, if you are going to sing well, everything in and around the breathing passage has to be open and strong. And that's exactly what she trained her students to do every day. Note, just so you know, you can do the snoring exercises in complete silence. You don't have to do any singing. I was shocked. Completely by accident, the woman I had been married to for 5 years, held the key to solving the problem, that had been holding our marriage hostage for so long. That day, my wife taught me the exercises she had been using, with her students for years. Within a week, I slept a whole night without snoring, for the first time in decades. And after just 3 weeks of training. Stay tuned for the Snoring and Sleep Apnea Journey, Part 2.